children, I hope you've had fun this week and are getting ready to go back to school. Well, Jesus was talking in a crowd one day when a man called out to him and said, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide our inheritance." You see, in those days, the oldest brother would get double the amount of money than anyone else in the family. And so what I think this brother wanted Jesus to say to the other brother was, give him an equal portion. Well, Jesus didn't get involved in this discussion between the brothers, but he did take this opportunity to warn this man and anyone else listening that life was not about money. Life is about knowing God. And then he told a parable. Now remember, these are special stories that Jesus told when he wanted everyone to understand something really quite important. And the story was like this. He said there was once a very rich farmer, and he was rich because his soil was rich. And his mealies grew quicker than anyone else's, and they grew taller than anyone else's. And he had an abundance of a harvest every time he brought in the crops. In fact, one year, he had such a huge harvest that the mealies wouldn't fit into the old barn, and it was groaning at its seams. "No problem," said the farmer. "I'll build a bigger, newer, better barn. In fact, I'll build lots of barns and fill them with all these crops, and then I'll make lots of money. And I can retire and sit back and eat and drink and enjoy being with my friends." But Jesus said that night, the farmer died in his sleep, just like that. And the birds ate up his crops, and his barns lay empty, and the man never did get to enjoy the money that he made. And then Jesus said to the crowd at the end of the story, what a silly man, to spend his life storing up riches for himself, but never giving any riches to God. So children, I wanted us to really understand what Jesus meant by this. He wasn't saying that the farmer was silly to grow his crops and have a great harvest, just like he's not saying it's silly to be a good businessman and make money. What he said was silly is what the man planned to do with that money. Planning a life of ease and pleasure and thinking about sitting back and just enjoying himself really showed what his treasure was and what his heart valued most. You see, he could have thanked God for this amazing farm that he had with this rich soil that meant that he had this abundance of mealies and crops. He could have said, "God, what do you want me to do with all of this? Who can I help? How can I tell others about how amazing you are when you give us so much?" You know, having money wasn't the problem. Money is just paper, isn't it? Or coins. Or nowadays, it's even numbers on a phone. But it's what we change our money for that shows what it's really worth to us. So if we're going to spend our money on having the best meals out and always having to go out for dinner, if we're going to spend our money on having the best clothes and the latest toys and the fanciest sports equipment, because we think that that's going to make us feel happy, it's going to make us look great, and it's going to make others think we're important, then that's a problem. But Paul says in Timothy that we need to be rich, but we need to be rich in good deeds, that we need to be ready to share with others, and then we can hold on to true life. You know, wanting what God wants will probably mean that we never have the biggest houses filled with the fanciest stuff, like the biggest barns full of crops. But when we spend our life on things that God treasures, telling others about Jesus, helping the poor, looking after orphans or widows, visiting those who are lonely or sick or in prison, or being a really faithful, generous friend, that will bring us real life, because that's doing what God really treasures the most. And I can promise you, children, that when you spend your life doing those things, God will provide everything that you need. You will never want, you will never not have what you need, because God is faithful. So today I would love you to grab your parents sometime later in the day and spend some time with them talking about what your family does that builds into God's kingdom, that is storing up riches in heaven. And if you're not doing things, then think about some of the things you could do, because I really would love you not to miss out on what is true life and what is real life. So I made a little farmer. You can do something similar just to remind you that Jesus told us that it's not about being rich, it's not about lots of money, but it's about realizing what God gives us and using our life to help others. All right, everyone, have a great week. God bless.